was 2010, and I was divorced at the time. I lost everything. The real estate market was crashing. Everything was just overnight. Things were just, I was powerless.
Yeah.
And I got pulled over and had a large amount of cocaine in my truck, and I was intoxicated. I mean, I was driving under the influence. I was not okay.
Yeah.
And they took me down to Illiterate Justice Center, and at the time, it scared me, Jennifer. It really scared me. And I didn't know who I was talking to or what I was talking to, but I told myself, okay, I'm becoming that guy that I said I would never be, and this is it. I'm never doing this again. Just get me bonded out. Now, I wasn't under arrest for a misdemeanor. I was under arrest for a second-degree felony.
Sure.
This was the real deal, and a DWI.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I had so much on me, it just missed manufacturing delivering.
And this was your first
time.
in anything.
Anything.
Okay.
Okay? And so so I get arrested, and when I'm sitting down there, I mean, inmates are coming in, the guards know them by name, and they're like happy. This is like a community. And I'm like going, what is going on here? What am I doing? And my dad came and bonded me out, which was humiliating. Okay. And I said I was done. I'm never doing this again. Okay, you got my attention. And when I see felony, I thought I was going to prison for a long time and all this stuff. And I said, I'm willing to go to any lengths to get clean and sober. And Jennifer, I meant it. I meant it. And when I got released, I got drunk and high that night.
This is Jen Sugarmeyer with Recovery Today magazine, your correspondent, and I am here with the incredible M to the Rock, Michael Molthan, and we are here in your new digs, Michael.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for coming by and hanging out with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the time, and you have such an incredible story. And I want to say, you know, I have, just like any seed, when you plant it and you watch it grow. And I've watched you over the years really grow and develop. And there's a lot of exciting things that are coming up in your life. And I want to spend time talking about them. But what I love about you, Michael, is that your story resonates with everyone. And I know we're here with Recovery Today magazine, but it's not just for people in recovery. It's the families, it's people that are struggling. But your message is really applicable to everyone. It's one that really resonates, and I've just watched your faith, and it's so many incredible things that you are standing on. So I've watched you, I know you, but why don't you tell us from your perspective, who is Michael Molthan? Tell me a little bit about your background and your story. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Well, thank you. And it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
We've been friends for a while, and congratulations on what's happening in your life.
Thank you.
When that question is asked to me, who is Michael Molthan in your story? As you're asking me that question, I immediately just get exhausted, thinking about, what it was like and what happened and what it's like today. And, this is I am a recovered drug addict, alcoholic. My drug of choice was narcotics and alcohol, and not understanding that the underlying problem was trauma, and so my whole life I was seeking visible things to fix my invisible problems. And I got so sick that I didn't care what the consequences were. And that's what we do. It's a consistent theme I hear with people who struggle with chemical dependency, alcoholism. But I started learning that alcohol and drugs is not my problem. It's a symptom. It's kind of like we look at a big tree and we see the leaves are yellow and brown. And we go out there and we're watering the leaves of the tree, and we are so confused that the tree dies. Well, the real problem we don't see, and that's underneath the ground in the root. And that's where the problem needs to be addressed. And that was very confusing to me. So my story is I had a false spiritual awakening at the age of 10 years old. And I had my first beer, my first drink. And something happened. I'll tell you, something happened. And I felt a sense of ease, a sense of comfort. I didn't credit it to the beer. I just felt like maybe just a wave of a good feeling came over me. So I wasn't like at age 10, robbing the liquor cabinet. But I remember that feeling.
Yeah.
And then I started experimenting with alcohol more and more and more.
Now let me ask. So your upbringing, was alcohol very prevalent in your life? Was this, I mean, did you have a family of alcoholics? Was there, what did all that look like?
I had a grandfather that he was very sick,
Okay.
very sick, and wasn't a bad person. He was just sick. He was alcoholic.
Yeah.
He died of this disease. This disease took him. I grew up in a great home.
Yeah.
My parents did the best they could with the tools they had. My dad worked all the time. He was sick all the time. He struggled with major kidney disease, but he worked and worked and worked. I didn't have a close relationship with him because the tools that were given to him was work and provide.
Yeah.
And then I had a mom that was a great mom and still is today. So it was very confusing to them. And but I endured some serious trauma at a very young age.
Yes.
I had my alcoholic grandfather. He violated me. He crossed some boundaries that aren't okay. And it confused me. I didn't understand it growing up, and I was hurt, and I had a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So when I discovered alcohol, it made the pain go away,
Mm-hmm.
and temporarily. So I would do more and more and more to try to keep the pain,
Mm-hmm.
to go away. I lived lies. I was delusional. I wouldn't tell the truth because I was addicted to changing the way that I felt. So I thought if I could tell a cool story to get you to like me, it changed the way I felt,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I was just addicted to all this stuff. I was constitutionally incapable of being honest.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. I read that in one of our recovery books that's out there for the public. And that made sense to me.
Yeah.
So
Now, did your parents know? Were they aware that these things were going on?
yeah, there was something that I was different.
Yeah.
I was different. I knew I was different. I tried to commit suicide at the age of 16,
Wow.
for the first time. I swallowed a whole bottle of pills of Valium at a very young age. I was going to be shipped off to a psych ward, and that changed.
Mm.
But I was just so confused. But I appeared to be normal,
Yeah.
but in my head, I didn't feel normal. I would see people living life, and when I did alcohol and drugs, I felt like I was living the life that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, this is how you live life. I just need to be medicated to live like I see you living,
Yeah.
not realizing that you have your own fears and anxieties and paranoia and way.
Yeah.
But my solution to my problems is radical.
Yeah.
If I get a splinter in my pinky toe, my solution is to cut off all my legs and arms,
Right.
And then blame you.
Right.
And so that's
That
what
resonates.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. So alcohol and drugs have been a part of my life for 90% of my life.
Yeah.
I've been drug-free, alcohol-free for 3.5 years. So
Amen.
yeah, so May 29th, 2017 and we can talk about this, is when I received my 27th mugshot.
Wow.
So this disease, I grew up, I was a hard worker, I was focused, and I ended up having a very successful high-end luxury home building company. I was married for 14 years.
Okay. So let's talk, because I know before the 27 mugshots happened, I know that you were on this path, and I'm sure things looked from the outside very good, that people, probably saw you as very successful, and 14-year marriage, and Michael has it all. So what did it look like? What did your life look like? Was this a double life that you were leading? Was there, how did all that map up for you with this life that you were leading that from the outside looked really good, but it was also very destructive?
It was a double life.
Yeah.
And I lived telling white lies. I didn't know how to have a relationship with another human being.
Mm-hmm.
So I lived a lie, and I used the tools that were given to me, and those tools that were given to me were by the men in the bar at the country club. So infidelity I thought that was normal. God was nowhere on my radar. just work hard, provide, and I go do whatever I want to do. So, I mean, I thought it was perfectly normal to go watch Monday Night Football and come home on Thursday.
You were invincible.
I was invincible. I was unstoppable.
Yeah.
But deep down inside, I was lost. I was scared, depressed, suicidal. I didn't. I was chasing visible things to fix my invisible problems, and I could not get any peace. I just couldn't get peace, and I couldn't sleep. I was fighting with guilt, shame, and remorse. Huge resentments. I mean, I had horrible resentments. And when someone says, "Well, you have a resentment because you play a role in it," I'm like, going, "Move around, get out of my face. I don't play a role in that. You say I had to play a role that my grandfather violated me. You know what?" And then in recovery, I realized I do play a role, and the role is I chose to hold on to the resentment and not forgive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to dig into resentment because that's an incredible. I know you talk about it a lot. So what I found interesting about your story is I think your first mugshot, correct me if I'm wrong, was 2010.
That's correct. That's correct. And it was 2010, and I was divorced at the time. I lost everything. The real estate market was crashing. Everything was just overnight. Things were just, I was powerless.
Yeah.
And I got pulled over and had a large amount of cocaine in my truck, and I was intoxicated. I mean, I was driving under the influence. I was not okay.
Yeah.
And they took me down to Illiterate Justice Center, and at the time, it scared me, Jennifer. It really scared me. And I didn't know who I was talking to or what I was talking to, but I told myself, okay, I'm becoming that guy that I said I would never be, and this is it. I'm never doing this again. Just get me bonded out. Now, I wasn't under arrest for a misdemeanor. I was under arrest for a second-degree felony.
Sure.
This was the real deal, and a DWI.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I had so much on me, it just missed manufacturing delivering.
And this was your first
time.
and anything.
Anything.
Okay.
Okay? And so so I get arrested, and when I'm sitting down there, I mean, inmates are coming in, the guards know them by name, and they're like happy. This is like a community. And I'm like going, what is going on here? What am I doing? And my dad came and bonded me out, which was humiliating. Okay. And I said, I was done. I'm never doing this again. Okay. You got my attention. And when I see felony, I thought I was going to prison for a long time and all this stuff. And I said, I'm willing to go to any lengths to get clean and sober. And Jennifer, I meant it. I meant it. And when I got released, I got drunk and high that night. Because what it is that's the tools that I have.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to do to get out of the bottom was the same defects of character that got me there.
So you told yourself, I'm done. I'm not doing this again.
I meant it.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized after the rest of the story, I was powerless over this deadly disease, completely powerless. And
so how did you feel when you, because I mean, were you aware of what was going on? I mean, you said, I am not. I've just gone from what I believe to be my absolute lowest of lows. I've got a second-degree felony. I had to say, hey, Dad, get me out of jail. I'm not doing this.
We didn't even know
again.
how to do that. He didn't know how to bond anybody out.
Yeah, nobody knows until you go through it. Yeah, I know. Figured that out. Yeah. So you're now 8 hours later, here you are using again.
Well,
how did you feel?
Well, the reason why I did that is because the disease started talking to me.
Yeah,
we call it the disease. Today I call it Satan, the enemy, saying, listen, I was so scared and I was so anxious about what happened that I just needed to take the edge off.
Yeah.
And then the disease speaks to me in my own voice saying, you can just have one. You need to detox safely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I took 2 Adderall and drank a bunch of alcohol and was up all night. And I got to a state where, okay, it's going to be fine. And I thought I could really think this through. Yeah. And what I was doing is I was thinking how to beat the system. How do I get out of this? How do I got a mugshot on Google and people were like messaging me going, we heard that you got arrested. And when I started hearing that, I really got anxious. So I used the tools that I know to make the anxiety go away, knowing what the result's going to be, and that was to drink and use.
Yeah.
We call it a sick brain trying to fix a sick brain.
Yeah.
And that's why in recovery we change one thing, and that's everything.
Yeah.
That made no sense to
Yeah.
me.
You
Right?
had no tools to pull on.
Because I'm going to fix this.
Right.
I'm going to fix this. I got into the mess. I'm going to get out. That is a huge red flag, because what got me into the mess, I used the same thing that got me into the mess to get out of the mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I didn't know. I finally realized what powerless means.
Yeah. Powerless, unmanageability, all of
Yeah.
that. So your first arrest, pretty heavy hitter. You're facing a felony.
Mhm.
You go out, you get high again. And what happens from there?
Well, I don't show up for court.
Okay. That's
Because the disease is telling me, going, dude, they got so many people to deal with. They're not even
they
thinking
don't
about
even
you. This is not
they're
a
gonna
big
forget
deal.
you're on the roster.
I literally did. I
Yeah.
said, but they don't.
No, they don't.
They
You're
come
on the
and-
roster.
They come and find
They
you.
don't forget it.
And then there was a warrant issued for my arrest. I was always looking over my shoulder. I was making up stories. I was running game. It became my life on how I was going to dodge these charges. Never thought about maybe getting an attorney. Never
you
thought
didn't get an attorney.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm just like,
Yep.
because I'm broke. But I'm not telling the world I'm broke.
Yeah.
I'm trying to appear to be normal,
Yeah.
and I looked messy.
Yeah.
So
Now, are you still married at the time?
I was divorced
This
at the
was
time.
divorced at the time.
That's what really created the downfall, is because I was really scared, because I have abandonment issues and I was being abandoned again. I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't talk to anybody. I isolated. The voices got louder in my head, and so I was self-will run riot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was. I was a roaring tornado.
So it was you and your folks.
Everybody was leaving me.
Okay.
Everybody, they just didn't know how to deal with me, because they've been dealing with me for my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to Betty Ford in 2002,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up walking out of the penitentiary in 2017. And I could never answer the question, like, why do you drink? Why do you do drugs? And I would get angry because I didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know why I did it. And what's different now? How can we believe you? I never could answer that question.
So what would you say now?
I have an answer now.
What is your answer?
And my answer now is in order for God to set me free, I had to set everyone around me free.
Mm,
Everyone around me free.
that's beautiful.
But the journey was a journey,
Yeah.
And it was a detour, and God allowed all these things to happen in my life so that He alone could use me to show the world that He alone is God.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me today. So on May 29, 2017, I was apprehended by 25 Dallas police officers, because I asked them, I said, how many of y'all are here? He says, about 25 of us here. And May 29th, 2017, I got a new charge, a new
When
felony.
you say here, where were you when
Dallas.
this was?
I was in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
On probation.
Okay.
On 4 felony probations, providing dirty UAs.
And you're at your home?
I am staying with another girl,
Okay.
and they came in to get me.
Okay. So they had a warrant out for your arrest. They
Warrant
came and
out for my
found you.
arrest.
At least one warrant.
The police were called on me. I was drunk and high, and they came and got me.
Yeah.
Judge Jennifer Bennett, who is now a very close friend of
Yeah.
mine, she came and got me. She always came and got me. I never had a bond. Every time I got arrested, I never had a bond. I mean, I've been in every single jail, prison up and down Interstate 35.
Mhm.
I mean,
And Jennifer is your judge?
Judge Jennifer Bennett
Jennifer.
is my judge, and she's a huge part of my story. Huge part of my story. She didn't treat me any differently than anybody else. But if you show Judge Bennett just a sign of willingness, she's going to work with you.
Mhm.
But if you don't, she's got a place for you.
Mhm.
And her job is to protect the community from me and to protect me from the community.
It's a hard job.
That's her job.
Yeah, that's
And
tough.
so this wasn't a favorable, easy judge.
Yeah.
She did her job.
Yeah.
But she also did her job in recognizing someone who's really trying.
Yeah.
I did baffle her. I confused her. I wasn't the normal person that comes through the criminal system. Something didn't make sense.
And why do you say that?
Because of my story, I was raised on the right side of the tracks.
Yeah.
If there's a right and wrong, but I
Yeah.
mean, I had all the material, I had all the visible things in the platform that how did this happen, right? What happens, this disease doesn't discriminate.
Yep.
It doesn't care who you are, where
Amen.
you live, how you were raised. It doesn't care. Satan doesn't care. And so, but
She saw that potential in you.
she did. She
Yeah.
did. Something baffled her. And so when I received my 27th mugshot and I was locked up in an aggravated assault tank, I knew it was over. I knew I was going to prison for a very long time.
Yeah.
4-time felon, violated all 4 felony probations. There was no out. I was done. And I was in my jail cell in an aggravated assault tank, 2-man cell. And I was literally pacing around the day room, tearing the concrete up. And I was so miserable. And I look back on it, and it was a life-changing experience for me. And it really God defined what is addiction. What is it? And I was in a top bunk, and the day came that my cellie caught chained to go to prison, and I was able to move down to the bottom bunk.
That's where you want to be?
You
Is
want to
on
be
the
in the bottom
bunk.
bunk
Okay.
because you get 2 more inches of a bed. Okay. It's
Lengthwise?
width.
Widthwise. Okay.
Why? Because it's usually the step for the person to get up onto the top
Oh,
bunk.
got it.
All right.
Yep.
And so, but it also, I journaled it. I said, why is this changing the way that I feel to get to a bottom bunk? And I didn't realize gratitude was setting in. I didn't know yet.
Yeah.
And so as I'm moving down to the bottom bunk, an old man, 75-year-old man on a bench warrant comes in there. He's dragging his mat. He's got his bags, stuff's falling out, and he's got polio. This guy's doing life in prison. He comes in there, and I'm like, oh, man. Out of respect, because he's school, which is old school. He's an old person.
Yeah.
I got to give him the bottom bunk.
You got to.
Or
Yeah.
they're going to check me.
Yeah.
You know, the tank is going to see that.
Yeah.
So I go up to the top bunk, and I say, go ahead, school. And he goes, thanks. He goes, what's your name? I said, my name's Rabbit. I got the name Rabbit in prison because I couldn't sit still. All right.
You're tearing up that concrete.
Tearing it up.
Okay.
And ironically, my son's nickname is Rabbit.
Okay.
Because he was real fast.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, wow. So they call me Rabbit. And I go, what's your name? He says, Ooh-wee. I said, what? Ooh-wee. And I'm like, ooh-wee? I said, yeah. I said, why do they call you ooh-wee? He says, well, when I was in the free world, in Oak Cliff, when I'd walk down the street, all the girls would be on the porch saying, ooh-wee. And so it stuck. That was his name, ooh-wee. I'm like, okay, let's go with it. So he sits there, and he would sit there at the desk looking out the window of the cell, and he would make soap. That was his hustle. He'd get all the county soap or the prison soap and mold it together to make a bar of soap.
Oh.
All right. But he watched me, and he saw me doing hard time. And what hard time is I was pacing the tank, and I was literally aging right in front of him. And he says, hey, look out, Rabbit. Come here. He says, you are doing hard time. I said, what are you talking about? He says, you got to get out of that world. I said, what are you talking about? He says, man, they're gonna chew you off the bone when you get to prison. You're making me nervous. You're making a lot of people here nervous because you're just pacing. I said, okay. Well, later that day, he didn't have a plan, but he's institutionalized and he sees me. And when someone in jail or prison is daydreaming, your cellie will say, hey, get out of that world. Because what you do is you start literally, you disassociate from your body trying to feel what freedom is like. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like going, okay. So one night, he says, hey, Rabbit, will you read to me? I'm like, what are you talking about? I go, can't you read? And he goes, no, I can't read or write. He says, half the guys in this tank can't read or write. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He says, but will you read to me? I said, sure. What do you want? He says, well, whatever you can get. This is a whole other topic. The hardest book to find in the public school district is the Bible. The first book they give you in prison is the Bible. And that's a whole other show.
I love that.
Isn't that
Yes,
crazy?
yes.
I think we got this backwards.
Yes, I would agree with
right?
that.
Because I can
Yes.
relate to that. We didn't have a Bible in my house.
Yeah.
We didn't have a Bible in school. It was never talked
I don't
about.
even think you can say the pledge anymore.
We did
I
as a
think,
kid. I
or
do
as
remember
a kid,
that.
I
As a-
did.
I
Yeah,
remember
but I
that.
don't think
But
you
today,
can anymore.
no.
It's
so
secular.
right. So that's a
Yeah.
whole other show we
Right.
can have
Right.
together. But so I said, well, sure. So I go upstairs to row 2, and I walk into this tank. It's a Black Panther gangbanger. I said, man, you got something. I need to read to school. Wants me to read to him. And you can say that freely because that's understood in prison. He says, yeah, my pillow. When the book cart would come by, you would grab as many books as you could to make your pillow.
Okay.
They wouldn't read them,
Okay.
but they put it under the mat to prop their head up to be a pillow.
Okay.
So I get this book, and it's the Living Recovery Bible. It's this book right here. And this book right here looked just like this, brand new. He never opened it, but it was his book. So this book right here is just black words on white paper to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not a believer. So I go downstairs and I said, all right, I got a book here. It's called the Recovery Bible. He goes, oh, the Bible. Good. Hey, Rabbit, read me Luke. I love the story of Luke. That's how he talked. I love the story of Luke. I remember his voice. I'm like, okay. So I go to the table of contents because I don't know where Luke's at. So I go to the table of contents and I find Luke. And in the Recovery Bible, at the very beginning of each of it, I just pulled it. Here's Jonah. It tells a story of what I'm about to read. So I start reading this to him. He says, oh, that's good. I remember that. And I started reading the Bible to him. The next thing I know, Jennifer, 4 days go by. 4 days go by. I'm not thinking about going to prison. And I'm like going, wait a minute, 4 days just went by. What's happening here? So I just a mental note. And I caught myself in 4 days. I was laughing. I was hanging out with the other inmates. And something spiritual was happening. I didn't chalk it up as spiritual. I didn't know what that meant.
You just knew you were
Right.
feeling good. You were sleeping and
Yeah.
not pacing.
And so I continued to read to him. Well, people love my handwriting. Okay. I would write letters for inmates to their family. Now, I wouldn't write to baby mom. It was all good stuff.
Yes.
And they would pay me a soup to do that. So I had no money. I had nobody visiting me. I had nobody writing me. I had nobody. When I signed in on my 27th mugshot, I couldn't even put an emergency contact name or number down.
Wow.
Had nobody. All right. And so as I am,
Did you put Judge Bennett down?
no, because I knew I was going to see her. I knew that was happening. But so I sat there. Ironically, Judge Bennett was on vacation, so I had to sit there for a long time before I got indicted, all right, or sentenced. I've been indicted, but I was going to be sentenced. Little did I know, but she was attending her dad's funeral. Her dad died. So I'm sitting there going through my journey, and so I ended up accumulating 10 soups, and I bought that Bible from that Black Panther. So I get locked up on 5/29/2017. And on 7/7/17, I woke up in the middle of the night after reading to Uwe. And something happened. And I couldn't breathe. I literally, and it wasn't medical. I sat, I go, I just couldn't breathe. I was like that. And all of a sudden, I did this. And I'll never forget, I'm not a movie watcher, but I did see The Green Mile. And I just felt like all these flies were coming out of my body. And I felt all this anger and this fear and this resentment and all this just trash coming out of my body. And I took this deep breath and I full of love. It's like ice water coming into me. And it just something happened. And so I'm looking out and I see the guards walking by and I said, I love that guy. I love that person. I love that person. And I bent down to see if Uwe was underneath me. I go, I love this man, you know? And wow, it did. So I just was so full of love. It was a feeling I'd never felt before. And so I go, man, this thing's speaking to me.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I felt safe.
Yeah.
I was free in prison.
Man, I feel that. I feel like the goosebumps. I see the flies, the everything coming out of you.
I was free. And I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So I really got knee deep into this book. Something was happening. And I was born again.
Wow.
And I started reading this thing.
And
It
this is
started
717.
7717. And you know what that number means? It's the number of completion.
That's beautiful.
Okay, 77. I didn't know that until I started getting more into the Word. And then I started studying all the times the number 7 is in Revelation, you know.
Beautiful.
And so as I'm reading that, another guy comes in to the tank. And he has 72 charges of arson against him. Well, his girlfriend sends him this book. And he says, hey, he goes, Rabbit, you want to read this book? This is trash. I ain't reading this trash. I looked at it. It was a book called Detours by Dr. Tony Evans.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, sure, I'll read it. And this book is about the story of Joseph in the Old Testament. And so as I was opening the book and I would read it, I left my Detours book in the tank so they could use it. Right when I got out, I bought a new one. And I started reading this thing, and Dr. Evans was speaking to me. You know, training for greater things always takes place in lesser things.
Mm-hmm.
And this was speaking to me, and he was talking about the story of Joseph and how God allowed Joseph to go through his journey and trials to eventually be the king and then eventually forgive the brothers who sold him to slavery.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, whoa, this is me. I like feeling this. So this book started speaking to me, and the Bible became louder and louder.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, I still haven't seen Judge Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
And I start getting up on the ramp and preaching to the tank that is rock and roll fighting. People are jumping off the second row. A guy committed suicide. They're fighting. And I'm just sitting there by myself with all this noise around me. And it's just happening.
And you're in peace.
In peace.
That's amazing.
The tank turns and I become tank boss.
Okay. I like it. Tank boss.
I'm the tank boss, and all I'm doing is reading the Word.
Yeah.
And I'm saying things. I'm like going, I can't believe I just said this. I can't believe I just said the word Jesus. Yeah. I'm like, that was like witchcraft.
So you had just to be clear, you had zero relationship with Jesus, higher power, anything.
I was religious. I would go to Park Cities Baptist Church because I'm in the Park Cities. I went to church for one reason. That was to network because I wanted your money.
Okay.
That's why I went.
Okay.
Dressed the part, suited up, praise God, hallelujah. All that stuff.
But that was about as far as it went.
Didn't believe
for
it.
you.
Didn't believe it at all.
Yeah.
Until I made the decision to turn my will and life over to him. And that's what happened on 7/7/17. So God started molding me. And I didn't realize what he was doing, but I would get up on the ramp and I would talk about this book, Detours. And the way that I would share, I said, I got to read this to you guys because this is really helping me.
How was it received when you were out there?
At first, not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
That's tough.
But then guys started standing up for me.
Okay.
They said, let Rabbit go. Let him go. But I wasn't preaching. Here's why they got attracted to me is because I said I, not you. This is what's
part of it.
Hey guys, this is what's working for me. This is why I'm doing easy time today.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what's working for me. If y'all want to rally, that's great. I got to share this good news with you.
Yeah.
This is working. And so it became attractive. See, I would go to church and they would say, you need to do this. You need to do this. Right. And it came across as blaming.
Yeah.
I didn't like that approach. But when someone started saying, hey, we are guilty. This is how we handle it today. That became appealing to me.
Well, and you're telling them your testimony.
That's it.
This is what happened to me. I am reading this, and look, I just went from all this hatred to I love Uwe sitting down there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you started to feel gratitude and all of the things.
Then the day came.
Testimony.
Yeah, then the day came. I said, Michael Molthan, I got to go see the judge. I go see the judge. I get a court-appointed attorney because I'm broke, who happens to be from Highland Park, who happens to be sober for 31 years.
Wow.
And I looked at him and I said, he goes, all right, let's put this together. I said, no. Put me in front of Judge Bennett right now. He goes, well, I can't just do that. I said, she knows me. He goes, are you family? I said, just go tell her he wants to see you. He goes, are you wanting to go open plea? I said, I don't know what any of that means. I'm going to go in front of her right now. He goes, okay. So he goes, let me go talk to her. Immediately he comes back in. He's like, I can't believe this is happening. She's like, are you sure she's not family? I said, she kind of is. And I walk in front of her. She's got dark circles under her eyes. She's exhausted. She just lost her dad. Mm-hmm. And she says, Michael, you're going to mind somebody, and you're going to mind me. I'm going to have to send you to prison. And I said, Judge Bennett, I'm already free. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Whatever you tell me, which blew her away, because I always came in there with my perfectly scripted of how I'm going to change. Got to believe me this time.
You came in and you were
I
humbled.
came in, I said, wherever I don't care if you sign me for 50 years. I'm already free. I can't wait to get back to the tank to be with my men. She's like, okay, when you get out, come back and see me, and I want you to go pay it forward. 2 days later, I catch Chain. Before I caught Chain with Tim Soups, I bought the Bible, and it was my
catch
sword.
Chain means you got
Go to prison.
released. Oh, you go to
in
prison. Okay.
I go down to Central Texas. I'm 300 miles away. I walk into my tank, brand new tank, and I walk in with my Bible, and it's rock and roll. And God says, I got you. We're going to start over. And all I did was my same routine. I stayed to myself. I sat down at the table. I opened my book. An inmate walked by. He goes, man, you got the coolest handwriting. I'm like, look up at God, and I said, I see you. I said, what do you? He goes, will you write a letter to my mom for me? I said, absolutely. He says, what do you charge? Nothing. You know? So I wrote a letter. The next thing I know, 3 weeks go by, and the entire tank is sitting with me, and we're doing it again. I'm talking about detours. I'm talking about the Bible. On October 13th, Friday the 13th, 2017, for people who've been incarcerated, nothing happens on Fridays. Nothing. It gets locked down. Everybody's racked up, getting ready for the weekend. October 13th, 2017, they come over to the loudspeaker. Michael Molthan, bunk and junk. Bunk and junk means get your bunk and all your junk. You're free. Well, that didn't make sense to me because I have all my paperwork that I've signed. I've got my number. I've got my destination. I'm going to Henderson, Texas.
So how long were you in for? Like, what were you expecting?
I signed a 2-year prison sentence.
And it had only been...
I've been locked up from 5/29. This is the 27th mugshot. Out of 6 years, I did 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. But from 5/29 to 2017 to October 13th, 2017, I was doing time.
Yeah.
En route
Thinking
to prison.
You were doing 2 more years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I was en route. I mean, I was
just out of the blue.
I was bald.
Bunk and
I was
junk.
bald. I had my number. I was off to the jungle.
Yeah.
The concrete jungle. And they say bunk and junk, and even the guards go, this is not right. He's got his TDC state jail number. He's been shaved. He's ready to go. They said, get him out. The state of Texas has released him. Nothing makes sense. I'm released. I literally sit there. I go, God, tell me what to do. He says, walk. So I started walking. I just started walking. Then God told me, go to downtown Belton. I go to downtown Belton, and I walk into adult probation and turn myself in. And even the lady that just visited me, my parole officer just visited me a week before, okay? She's like, what are you doing here? I said, exactly. There's been a technicality. You need to lock me up. She calls the state of Texas, and they said, he's free. I'm like, what? They know it. They know the story. They're freaked out. So I say, call Judge Bennett. This is funny because Judge Bennett just says, you exhaust me. Everything you do is drama. It's either women and drama with you, okay? And so she calls and she says, you tell him to be in my court 9 o'clock Monday morning. I'm 300 miles away, homeless, not a penny in my pocket. And they said, you need to be there. You're no longer the property of the state of Texas. Go. I'm like, okay, how am I going to get there? They said, we don't know. The probation manager walks into the office. He goes, you're not going to believe this. I said, oh, yeah, I will. I'm just joking. He says that the state of Texas asked if we had a benevolence fund. We looked at our benevolence fund. There's $86 in there. The state of Texas has approved that we can buy you a bus ticket to Dallas for $68, but you're going to have to walk to Temple, Texas. We can't transport you. I said, I ain't tripping. This is perfect. Meanwhile, the girls in there are pulling crackers out of their drawers that they brought for like snacks and stuff and made me a goodie bag. And I walked another 80 miles to the bus station. And I make it to court. And out of all the people, my mom picks me up at the Greyhound bus station with my oldest son in Orlando, who I hadn't seen. And my oldest son, the first time he's seen me in probably 15 years. And I just got released from being incarcerated. And I made it Monday morning. And I walked into the courthouse Monday morning. I'm limping. I'm so sore. I got blisters on my feet. My head is sunburned because I'm bald. And I walk in there, and I'm literally walking like this, almost crawling because I'm so sore. And Judge Bennett says, there's obviously someone a lot bigger than me working in your life. And I've heard what you've been doing. I've heard. And she goes, I'm going to set you free.
Wow.
Tore it up. She says, come back tomorrow with a self-correct program, and I want you to go pay it forward. I'm homeless. I'm in the Salvation Army. And iHeartRadio, well, actually, it's funny because this is what's funny about the story. It's Friday, October the 13th, I'm released. I show up to court 15 minutes early on Monday, all right? On Wednesday, Brian Glenn has a very well-known business talk show. He's trying to find Michael Molthan. Where has this luxury home builder gone? He's just fallen off the map. And my dad said this guy's trying to, so on my dad's cell phone with Salvation Army clothes on, I do this interview with Brian Glenn. He says, okay, this makes sense. You've disappeared. What year was this? I said, Brian, this was Friday. He goes to a commercial break and he's like, are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm homeless as we speak. I'm on my dad's cell phone. iHeartRadio hears it. They bring me in. I share my story, and M2 The Rock was born.
Wow.
M2 The Rock was born. And
so I want to talk about that's incredible. I knew a lot about your story. I think, that's unbelievable. And I think for a lot of people, October, Friday the 13th is one of these days that are a little superstitious.
Demonic.
People, right. And for you, this has been, the most incredible day, the gift,
it's a big celebration. It's a big celebration with our team, October 13th, and Judge Bennett, and it's exactly right. It's a huge day for us.
So M2 The Rock. So tell me about, what does M2 The Rock mean to you?
Well,
what is the significance?
My initials are Michael Molthan.
Right.
So that's M2.
Yep.
The Rock, which I read in the book Detours, Dr. Tony Evans, and it's I love this right here because I actually have it noted. It says M2 The Rock, and Tony Evans says, God will often let us hit rock bottom so we will discover that he is the rock at the bottom. And a lot of people in this disease, when we hit rock bottom, I would try to make the comeback.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm playing the Rocky music, and I'm just like, go, 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 go. What I'm doing is, what's fueling the comeback is resentments.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you I'm back. And I didn't realize that it was fueling me, and I have expectations of how this comeback is going to do, how it's going to look. And when I have expectations, I'm setting myself up for a resentment.
That's right.
And the number one offender that kills the human race is resentments.
And I'm glad you brought that back up again, because I've never heard anyone talk about resentment more than you. And it's one of these things that is so tricky, and it sneaks up on us without most of us realizing it, and it sets us off on a completely different path. So talk a little bit about resentment, what it means to you, and the role that it can play in your life.
Resentment is huge. I do talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about it because I'm so fortunate today that I have tools to get me through resentment. And it's not me alone. Okay. I have a mentor, a male mentor that used to be my drug dealer back in the early 90s. He's been clean and sober and is a believer for almost
Probably
30.
Good for both of you. Good accountability.
Almost
on both
30
sides.
years.
Wow.
30 years. And so, resentment's a result. It's a result of fear. Okay. Fear's a lie. It's false evidence appearing real. And that's where the enemy gets us. And this goes back to ooh-wee. This goes back to pacing. It goes back to reading the Bible and doing easy time. When I'm in fear, what's happening is I go into the future alone. And when I go into the future alone in my head, as a part of fear, anxiety, paranoia sets in. I don't like that feeling. So I go to the past. I shift the view. I use my sick brain to fix this. I go to the past. But when I go to the past in my head alone, I get angry, resentful, depression. If you suffer with depression, it's a result. My story is it's a result of I'm living in the past alone. I don't like that, Jennifer. So I shift the view and I go back and forth. I'm doing this game back and forth, not realizing that all I have is the now. So that's hard time. So when I was incarcerated, I was going back and forth, until I started realizing I didn't have drugs and alcohol to create that temporary and
you had to deal with it.
And to make that go longer, I would do more and more and more. Well, when I'm doing more and more and more, I'm creating new consequences.
Sure.
And the way I solve those consequences is to do more and more and more.
Yeah.
And it creates more fear and anxiety, more depression, more resentments, more anger. And we see this cycle.
Spiral,
right?
circle the drain.
So I learned with OOE that the safest place in the world is right here, right now, because that's where God's at.
Yeah.
The enemy's in the past and the future, and it wants me to go into the future alone. Wait a minute, Michael, what about planning? God wants us to plan, but he wants to be a part of the plan. So when I go into the future with God, that's hope. When I go into the past with God, that's gratitude. And I learned this incarcerated. And what it was is when I was reading to OOE and I was reading to these guys and I was serving these guys, I was out of self. I was serving them, which gets me in the now. Okay? And that's why it's so addicting. Spirituality is so addicting because I want to be in the now. Recovery is I recognize it. So what is the solution to fear? To talk about it. To talk about it with another man. I believe that men work with men, women work with women. All right. This is why early relationships and early recovery is very dangerous, because I can't have a relationship with my fiance until I have a relationship with God. Right. Because the number one offender that kills the human race is resentments. So if I get in fear about my fiance, it's going to turn into a resentment. It could be as simple as not returning a text message. That I end up drinking and drugging over it. Okay. And so that's what I've learned about resentments. Also, when I have a resentment, I play a role in it. And I have to realize what role I play in that.
Yeah. You are the only common denominator in your whole life.
I've let some bad people in my life
Yeah.
in this run of recovery. And I had some resentments about it. And I had a real hard time accepting it.
Yeah.
Until I realized what role I played in it. And the role I played in it is I let them in my circle, knowing.
So what advice would you give to people that are struggling? They have a lot of resentment and it's hard sometimes, and sometimes it's our ego that gets in the way, or sometimes it's we're stubborn, right? And we say, well, they should have returned that text message, right? And how do we work ourselves out of these situations when we start to feel resentment?
Well, it's a great question. And my solution for resentments is the sooner that I can accept the role that I play in it, I get the freedom. Okay. The F word, forgiveness, never made sense to me. I hear it, but how do I know if I'm doing it right? Well, true forgiveness, I know I'm doing it right, is when I stop planning revenge against that person, place, or thing. Okay. Or thought. See, addiction or false idol can be a person, place, or thing, or a thought.
Yeah.
That can make my life unmanageable. So the solution to resentment is to put it on paper, talk about it with a therapist, counselor, or a sponsor in recovery, and we look at it, and the freedom is looking at the role. I have to accept it. If I let a bad person in my life and I know he's a bad person and I'm going to try to fix him and he ends up hurting me, I play a role in that, and I have to accept that. Do I owe an amends? Do I owe an amends to this person? And that's where we get the freedom, and that's where we grow.
Yes.
See, God allows dilemmas in our life so that he can build us. So if you're in a dilemma right now, if there's crisis and chaos going on in your life, God's working on something big. And we have to be patient and trust him.
He's bringing you to a lesson or it's a course correction.
Right.
Yep. Those are the two principles I stand on. So, well, that's incredible. I mean, really, what an amazing journey. And now let's talk about this. This is I love this. We're sitting here in the diner, which is your new digs.
It
And
is.
so tell me about what is going on with you. We know where you got your start, which was just happened to have that radio conversation 2 days after you got out of prison.
Yeah. You
And
know,
now here we are.
and here we are today. You know, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, I'm engaged. I'm engaged
Congratulations.
to
Yes.
a national recording artist, Rachel Stacy.
Yes.
Who would have thunk that? You know what I mean? I mean, hey, I'm homeless.
And she's amazing. And
Yeah.
9 years in recovery.
She'll November 6th, she'll have 9 years of recovery.
Oh,
and
I love it.
It's funny. I went to Judge Bennett. I said, because when Judge Bennett said, Michael, no drama, no girls. I'm like, done.
Yeah.
I can do that. And then when I met Rachel Stacy, I said, listen, I got to talk to my judge. And Rachel was a guest on my show. And that's how we met. And it was really cool because for the first time I met a woman that I really liked for her. And the 12 steps, I'm a 12-step recovery guy. And God has taught me how to love this person with expecting nothing in return. I never thought that. You know, it was always about me. So I do that, and then we just slowly but slowly, fell in love, and so I'm really excited about that. And so she has her own TV show called The Rachel Stacy Show, America's Country Music with the Country Network. And the Country Network has its network, and then they have TCN Studios, where they provide resources for anybody that wants to do commercials or shows for that. And Tim Eaton, who is the CEO of the Country Network, invited me in. And he says, listen, your content and your message is powerful. We want to be a part of this. And so you're seeing behind the scenes, and we've got great people, Doc and Brenda and Chris and Don. I mean, it's just a great family here who are help putting all this together. And that's been my story. Down to everything you see on my body has been given to me. Everything's been given to me.
And I love it. You are paying it forward. And as I mentioned, I mean, your story isn't just for people in recovery. It's not just for their families. It's for anyone. And what I love about this community is we have to do certain things in order to stay sober.
Right.
In order to stay sane.
Right.
And these are things that really we all need to be doing, but we have to do it in order to live.
Right.
And so I love the community, and we're really forced to look and internally and get inside of our heads, which I think sometimes people are just going through life and they just let life pass them by and they don't get inside their heads. We have to do it for our survival, but you bring out a lot of these incredible topics. I mean, we talked about resentment. We talked about faith, so many incredible things. And this is what we all need. So what you're delivering to the nation now, globally, people listen to you globally. You touch thousands and thousands, if not millions of people through your incredible story. I mean, there has to be a feeling that goes along with that. A sense of relief.
There is a sense of relief, but also I'm experiencing spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
You know, the enemy doesn't want me doing this.
Sure.
You know, and God allows that warfare to happen for me to turn to Him, to continue to turn to Him. You know, I've had the pleasure to have private meeting with Dr. Tony Evans, 2 of them. And, you know, Nina Jones plays a huge part in that. And so the show now, the new format, we were live a lot, 5 nights a week for 3 years. We're the longest running show in the world in recovery. So a lot of people can't pull this off because the enemy gets louder than the solution.
Yeah.
And their motives are different. They're going for it for money, and that's not what it is. You know, all that's a result. I do this for what Jesus Christ has done for me. You know, that's what I have to do.
You're M to the rock.
Yeah, so that's what it says. That's what we do. And so our new format is we're getting away from the word of recovery and addiction, and the show is going to be about sharing personal experiences on how do you live a purposeful life. You know, people say, find your purpose. How do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we do this? Some it's through pain. Some of it's through a white light experience. You know, some is through a burning bush moment. I had a lot of burning bush moments, but I was the one putting the fire to the bush, you know? And so that's what the new format is, to have you on the show again. Lots of well-known names, and anybody that comes to say, hey, this is my struggles and this is how I'm getting through it today. We're all addicts. I will say that. We are
believe that.
all addicts. We're addicted to sin. Okay. We are addicted to visible things to change our invisible problems. We're addicted to false idols. Okay.
And we all always have Satan's trying to penetrate all of us at all times.
And one thing is I make it very clear is I'm not unique. I didn't drink alcohol and do drugs because I was dealt a bad deck. I didn't do it because I was abused, sexually abused, or anything like that. That's not why I drank and did drugs. I drank and did drugs for the effect. That's why I did it. And that's recovery, because I had to get honest and address these things. And, you know, when it comes to religion, M2 the Rock is an atheist. But when it comes to the Word of God, in this Bible and the gospel of Jesus Christ, I am all in. You know, religion is a luxury I don't have. I can't do that because I will go way left. I need the truth, the Word of God. So this book right here, Jennifer, right here, this is the way it looked like when it was a pillow. Today, this is what that book looks like.
Wow.
That is the book.
This is a well-loved book right here.
That is my sword, and it's got coffee stains on it. You can even open
beautiful.
it up. You can see right here, it's got deodorant stickers. I mean, this is money in jail. This is tape.
These are deodorant stickers.
Yeah,
holding it
and
together.
use this
There you
tape
go.
because my Bible was falling apart. So your life is together when your Bible's falling apart, right? But I love going here and reading the notes that I have in here, and it's got, I love this. What is acceptance? True acceptance has no resentments. So I would get these thoughts from God, and I would just write it down. And people ask, what's your favorite verse in the Bible? And it's Matthew 6:14, and I'll read it. It says, if you forgive those who sin against you, your heavenly Father will forgive you. But if you refuse to forgive others, your Father will not forgive you. And what that means is in order for God to set us free, we must set everyone around us free, because resentments block us from God.
Yes.
And God says, listen, you can ride with me. I'm not going to ride with you.
Yeah.
All right. And so once we remove the resentments, God shines upon us.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And Michael, thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
story. This has been incredible. I'm so excited for everything that's coming up in your life. I feel it from you, and I've seen it. Like I said in the beginning, I've seen this seed over the last few years grow, and here we are, and you're sharing the message, and I feel the word of God coming from you, and I just want to thank you for sharing it with everyone today in the world. So
Thank you, Recovery Today magazine. Thank you all so much.
yes, absolutely. So again, this is Jen Sugarmeyer here with Michael Molthan, M2 the Rock. Tune in. He's got a lot of amazing things coming up with the Country Network station. And until next time, thanks for joining.